or somebody else.
You guys make an interesting point. I think the first thing that stops us as a people is effective communication. We don't know how to communicate with one another. I tell people all the time, you have to know the language. And I worked with kids for a number of years, and one of the things that I made sure that I did was I understood their language. So if Johnny was showing off in school, I understood that Johnny made it to school, which was a positive, but the negative was Johnny's showing off because he's hungry. And you have to be able to meet the needs of the people. And that's just what's not happening. We're not meeting the needs of people. We're meeting the needs of the system. I'll give you this amount of money if you do X, Y, and Z. I'll buy this entire shopping center if we can have this. I'll buy these homes over here, but in order to get these homes, if you're going to get federal money, you have to allot a certain amount of the homes for public housing. And so it's like everything that we're doing, there has to be a benefit. Somebody is making money off of everything that we do and say. Even down to the young men wearing their pants down. I grew up where my mom always told me to wear a belt. Always. Even as a grown man, if I forget to put a belt on, guess what I do? I turn right back around and I get that belt. You'd be amazed of how many kids don't have a belt, number one, to begin with. Be amazed of how many children will never sit down at a table and eat dinner and have a positive conversation with adults in the home. That's because they're raising themselves. They have to get themselves together for school. They have to do their homework. And so the community has lost the effectiveness in its goal. The church, in most cases, I don't know about the churches down here in this area, but the churches in Baltimore, some churches are getting rich and the neighborhoods are suffering. And you can visibly see who got the nice cars, who have the nice houses. I personally believe that if you are a mega preacher, nobody in your congregation should be catching the bus. However, that's not everybody's belief. But they'll go Sunday after Sunday and give, but at the same time, there's no return where you can understand the person and environment that somebody is benefiting for the good and not the bad. So the systems are in place. If we talk about, social services programs, the thought was that for women and children, the men couldn't live in the homes if they were receiving public assistance. In some cases, that's still very much true. However, they will tell you, he can stay here, but these are the limitations on what services you will receive. You're offered daycare, you're offered certain programs, but again, the income base have to be at a certain poverty level. So we'll give you these services, but at the same time, you have to remain at this level. And so we're still stagnant as a people, but we're thinking we're arriving because they're giving us certain things, but at the same time, we're actually paying for them in our everyday process. And it's just not working. But we've gotten so adept to getting help from somewhere else instead of within. Because if we come together and pull our resources together, we can be an army that can't be moved. But instead, we self-destruct within the neighborhood, and everybody's against one another. And so I don't hold you accountable, you don't hold me accountable. You do what you want to do as long as it's not affecting me and mine. At the same time, it really is, because what you do is going to matter to me. It's going to come down the pipe. Like when we had the riots in Baltimore, I live in that area and I was offended because I had a curfew. I live right out the back from the state's attorney, but I couldn't come outside my door. Even though they declared a national emergency, but at the same time, I wasn't participating in that. But it still affected me, it affected all the business owners, and some of them to this day still trying to recover from what they lost. But what did we do? We destroyed our own communities. We didn't go to the Inner Harbor. We destroyed the CVS, Mondawmin Mall, that they funneled millions of dollars into trying to clean up the reputation. And those are the places that we hit: the tennis shoe store, the jewelry store. So it's about things, and at the same time, we can be our worst enemy. But nobody wants to listen to what the next person has to offer.
But before we go, please don't lose our train of thoughts. Are there any more questions in the audience? Anybody? Okay, all right. Well, let me give you a chance to talk.
See, I'm glad you brought up that riot situation, because it isn't being said what is the effect to the youngsters that witnessed that. You know, in my childhood, the riots of '68 in D.C., I am 58 years old, and at the age of 48, I had to go back to '68. Because there were guys riding around in my neighborhood that wasn't the same color that I was. They had these big guns that was telling me to walk on the sidewalk, don't walk in the street, but I don't know you. You're a stranger to me, and plus you're a white man. And a black man was just killed by a white man, are you gonna kill me? You know, I didn't know. I was a child. And children that develop underlying issues from that, because a gun is a scary thing, it kills you. But you're a child. You're trying to process what your eyes saw. You see the violence. You get the effect that it's a societal type of issue that you can't comprehend with a child's mind. So who did that child go and talk to and say, hey mom, or hey dad, I saw the policeman walking around there. He pulled a gun, and when he pulled that gun, I was right there. How did that? You're not going to hear that from that child, because I never said, mom, this gun this white man was carrying in my neighborhood and told me to get out in the street, get on the sidewalk. It scared me. I kept that inside. That's a fear factor that I never had processed. And when you're going through your years of nurturing from your youngest years, that is an effect that's going to be carried on. So therefore, back to the community, this child is starting to develop these mental issues because of the simple fact that that wasn't resolved. So what happened next in the neighborhood, what happened next in the neighborhood, and you get to a point where you have to start making choices, and your choice processing system is tainted, and you're going to make that unhealthy choice. You're going to pick up that drug. You know, you're going to make sure that you feel better from those feelings that you have inside, the anxiety, the fear. You're going to mask those feelings, and then you're stunning your emotional growth. And as long as you're stunning your emotional growth and you're moving on biologically, you're still making childish, poor, unhealthy decisions because your emotional growth was stunted. And then people wonder why you decide that you're going to do things like violent acts, why you're going to do things like walk away from your family, why you're going to do drugs, why you're going to make unhealthy choices, because unresolved issues are going to play a part at some point in your life. And so how are you going to wind up in church? How are you going to wind up eating right? How are you going to wind up asking for mental health assistance? You go through a judicial system. You committed a crime. You got court ordered to. And the number of people that winds up getting the help that they need through the court system, it is nowhere near what it needs to be to say that it's helping our community.
Wow, I think that was pretty profound. The other thing I think that we need to do as a community, not just a church, but as a holistic approach, we have to, as you said, we got to get out of the box. The church has to get back into the community. The church has to show up in places where nobody else shows up. Jesus was born disenfranchised, right? An at-risk child who was, in our terms, in the back alley of a garage that was filled with a lot of, dysentery. He was at risk. He shouldn't have made it. He shouldn't have made it, right? But it's by the grace of God that God had a greater purpose in his life for us. And I think we got to take that approach that your life is well worth investing into because there's a greater outcome for you. And so one of the things that that we are trying to do. And we're not doing it successfully, but we are trying. We're making an attempt to get back in the community. We got some brothers that do ministry called Beyond the Walls, and it's going back into some of the areas. I don't want to say hardcore areas, but some of the areas where a lot of resources aren't provided, in touching some of these young individuals, and we're finding ourselves even touching some men, touching brothers that are in their 40s and 50s, and trying to provide them with and equip them with resources to be able to lift themselves up. And that's real discipleship. That's real discipleship. And walking with somebody in their tough area, their tough experiences, until they can make the transition into a healthy lifestyle. And so it's not enough for us to preach from pulpits without giving practical applications to apply these principles directly to your life for an immediate impact. And that could be, like you said, understanding that if I can pause and pray and meditate, it might impact my emotional state of being, and therefore I might not rush in to make rash decisions, which could have a rippling effect in my whole community. It's like throwing a big rock in a lake, and it has all the ripples, right, that are still going to touch the edges of the banks. And so we have to be able to garner some resources. And while in this area, we rank top 5 places in the country to come for work. There are more jobs here than we have qualified people. But guess what? There's no workforce development to train up the immediate indigenous population here to get them to work. And so now we need to be able to, in your neighborhood, I believe that was Amazon that just built that huge, and they're employing a lot of folk, but they don't have enough people that they can give jobs to. So what they do, they reach out to some grassroots and say, hey, we're going to put some training centers right inside your communities and your churches, because we need your folk to come to work, and it empowers them financially as well, but we need them to be consistent. So we need to be able to tap into some resources that we have in the house. Everything I believe we need is right within our community. I think we just have to stop being selfish and self-serving, and begin to be selfless, and being able to touch people who appear to be in some untouchable places, and to go out and to get outside of our comfort zone, and to tell somebody who hasn't been told, that you're loved, that I love you and I care about you, and really mean it. And really mean it. And the only way that a person really knows that is by you showing up. It's not by what you're saying. It's not what we're saying. It's about what we're doing. It's whenever we start to, our actions begin to line up with what we do, then trust and connections are redeveloped. Otherwise, it'll be cognitive dissonance, right? A separation from what we do and what we say. And folk will look like, well, they're inconsistent, and so why should I believe you? You look like, while you look like me, you might not be about me, and you probably are part of the system from the jump. So we have to, I think, heal some fractured relationships within our community. Just because I'm a Christian don't mean I can't sit down with my brother who's an imam of a mosque, my brother who might be Jewish, or my brother, whatever your faith tradition is. At the end of the day, we're suffering all from the common ills in this current state of time. And we have to find somewhere where we can connect commonly with one another, and being able to assist one another, because we have more things in common than we have that are different and separating us.
I think this is a really good conversation. I think the important thing now is where the rubber meets the road. Where do we go from here? And rather than us, kind of maybe expounding on what it is that we know, I think it's fair to say that whatever we know and whatever we're doing and whatever we already have done, we don't get a good grade. And I like to think, I look at myself and I say, man, I got this restaurant and I'm doing it. I don't get a good grade. I don't get a good grade in Prince George's County where all of the areas, I don't get a good grade in Baltimore, where all of the things that we're talking about in every one of those areas is problematic, and if you look back 10 years, it's gotten worse. It ain't gotten better. We can't get a good grade. So I think we have to humble ourselves and admit, I don't know. But I'm willing to sit in a room and I'm willing to hash this thing out. I know some stuff.
Right.
I don't know the whole thing. And you know, there's something we have to understand about knowledge. There are three different types of knowledge, or three different aspects to knowledge. There's what we know that we know. There's what we know we don't know. And an example of that is we know we don't know how to fly an airplane. We know we don't know how to do that. Then there's what we don't know that we don't know. And what we don't know that we don't know is the biggest block. That's the biggest part of the pie. So we're trying to work this thing out. We're trying to fix this problem, and we're using our limited understanding, our limited knowledge, our limited, exposure to try to figure this out. We are going up against the most formidable foe on the planet. The most formidable foe on the planet. This ain't no joke. Winner take all. I'm not putting a color on it. I'm just putting a reality that I'm looking at myself, and those like me are not going in a forward direction. We're going in a negative direction. It's time for us to hunker down, sit down somewhere on a think tank, and start going through some stuff and letting go of everything. We have to let go, just like it was written in the scriptures. It was talked about that if you keep anything from Babylon, if you keep anything from the enemy camps, I'll destroy you. We got to let it all go.
Yes, sir.
And it's at that point where you let it all go that you open up yourself to receive what it is that you got. But if you hold on to one thing, man, I like Wild Irish Rose. It's just my own, how we like to say, it's my only vice. We hold on to that only vice and don't understand how that cripples us from being able to receive what it is that we're supposed to receive in order to get this right. There's a word that we've been using that we don't have. And I've heard us use it on this panel. I've used it, and so have my colleagues here. Community. It don't exist. Common unity doesn't exist. We're not operating within a space of common unity. We might be close. I might be right here, but common unity is not our reality. And that's something that I think is going to help us. That along with creating a think tank where we begin to start talking about what we need to do and what we need to know and how we need to move forward in order to correct the problems that exist in our community. We need to create support groups so that people can come together and we can begin to just like it has been worked on us. We need to work the solution on a social support group system so that we can start educating men on what the purpose of a relationship is in the first place. Because our perception is of a relationship is I'm just going to get me some. So I get me some, and that's a relationship. And I'm satisfied, I'm fulfilled, and I go get me something else, and now I got another relationship. It's like that in every area. It's like that in every area. And we have to admit it. I don't care what PhD, MD, DD, or whatever else you got, MD, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. We're not progressing. We're not progressing. And we're watching other people progress at our expense.
That's right.
And we have to stop and come together and be prepared to be in opposition to every single thing everywhere on the planet.
Yes.
Knowing that it's for the good of ours. Because my children are banking on me making good decisions. And they don't even know it. They're banking on it. And we have to come together and be prepared. We have to link arms. And we talked about the things that draw us together. We have more things in common than we don't. One of the most key things that we have in common is our enemy. He doesn't care whether he's Muslim, he's Christian, he's Buddhist, and I'm a Hebrew. He don't care. He sees something about us that we don't know. There's a peculiarity about us. There's something that we have that makes us this target. No matter where you find us, no matter what persuasion, no matter what economic strata, no matter what, we have to cut them off.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And when you have a mentality like that, and you're dealing with a person that's willing to do whatever, whether it be through the food, through the judicial system, through the educational system, through the supposed healthcare system, through whatever system, the social systems are not designed to put us in a better space.
That's right.
So we have to come together. I don't care